Hello, and welcome back to Dissecting 20, a show where we are watching through Dimension 20, more specifically Fantasy High, to understand the show for our own home games. So this is not necessarily a media television show analysis. This is looking at an example of D&D in the wild that has been wildly successful and seeing what parts of that we could possibly translate back to our own home games. And also enjoying the story as we go, theorizing, predicting what might happen. If this is your first time watching Fantasy High, I would recommend just watching it separately because you will not be able to gather the plot of the show from this video, but think of it more as a companion piece. I will start with my takeaway from episode 2. And oh boy, did I get episode 2'd. I got a lot of, I think, well-reasoned, well-thought-out comments, especially in the vein of, it as a game versus it as a show and how to balance those and what that moment, the end of the combat especially, what that meant for the episode as an episode of a TV show versus as a session of D&D. And I don't think that the two are totally separated. I think we should still really consider the impact of those sorts of events on the narrative at our own home games. But it's certainly different when considering a media product as opposed to a D&D campaign. So I'll still be looking at it through the lens of a D&D campaign, but I wanted to put a big caveat on that. And my overall takeaway from that is that there's kind of two separate things going on there, which is the planning versus the actual running. And I hit on it a lot at the end of the episode that I think that Brennan ran the combat really, really well. And I stick to that on reflection. I think that he did a great job of encouraging creativity. I think he did a great job of walking brand new players through something that is relatively unintuitive. D&D combat is not the least intuitive thing you could ever stumble into, but it's not something that you're just going to pick up and instantly know how to do. And I think Brennan did a really good job of getting people into it with an interesting setup and a very fun flow to the combat. I think that the actual flow throughout the run did a nice ramping up of tension. We just had some interactions with the cuties at first that went somewhat poorly and, had a few bright spots. And then when we're really getting close to the ooze, getting close to the big corn blob, we have Doreen come in with this weird lunch lady magic. And she starts making all these comments and the players kind of talk back to her. There's a ramp up in tension when we realize that she's not really in her right mind. As we then uncover that the ooze is not even concerned with us, he's going into the closet to get something else. I could go on, but I think that in general, the way that it was ran did a really good job of ramping up the tension at a good pace, and that the decisions that Brennan made, especially once he realized some of the problems that we'll get to, I think he did a lot of really slick moves in order to try and tilt the odds back in the player's favor. Whether that is taking actions that are reasonable for the monsters to take, but end up kind of losing them turns or delaying their turns. Whether it is taking something that is maybe a little bit of a softer mechanic, like the durability of the door, and kind of playing with that, extending the door's durability to this ooze slam as far as you can reasonably extend it. There was a lot of small things like that I think Brennan really pounced on to try and correct maybe some potential issues in the setup. Which, speaking of, the planning, I will heavily die on this hill that 2 players should not die in the very first combat of the campaign. I don't even care how many mistakes they make, how poorly they act, any of that. Before the first combat, you have not truly set a tone. Even if you've had a session 0 where you've talked about deadliness, monster types, running, all of those sorts of things, your players are not truly going to have an intuition for your combat style and have an intuition for the deadliness of the campaign, I would say, until multiple combats in. But at the very least, they're not going to have it in the first combat. So there's really no situation in which I'm blaming any of the players for this, especially considering multiple players have an extreme inexperience with D&D, TTRPGs in general, but especially 5e. So, I mean, I guess if we're looking for someone to blame, who's the person left? I guess it's Brennan. But I say I guess because I truly don't at the end of the day. I think that the spawner was an incredibly cool idea. And unless you have a lot of experience in D&D 5e specifically, as a DM, as a combat designer, you may not have an intuition for how risky first level can be, how quickly characters at first level can sort of swing in terms of challenge. And you also may not have an intuition for how wildly a spawner can get away from you. If you don't have a lot of experience in 5e specifically, and frankly, unless you've used a monster spawner multiple times in 5e. I happen to have done that because I think that monster spawners are fucking cool. But I've also very much misused them multiple times during that process. So I don't blame Brennan for setting up the combat this way. I think that there were a lot of things that could have been very interesting about it, especially given the ranged combatant that is Doreen with the minions and this alternate objective with also is a seeming insta-kill with the paper that would have just totally ended the fight. Because one of the biggest problems with a spawner is the way that it constantly builds up the enemy side's strength. But if the entire enemy side has an insta-kill switch, that does mitigate a lot of that. So I think that, like, all in all, there was a lot that was very good about the design. It just got away from him, which that is very likely to happen, unfortunately. Specifically with a monster spawner, specifically at level 1. And speaking of things getting away from you, I want to take a quick second to talk about how today's sponsor helps me with exactly that sort of problem in my games. Thank you to World Anvil for sponsoring today's video. There are tons of ways that World Anvil helps GMs and world builders organize and keep track of their worlds, but for this ad, I want to talk about just one. When you are writing an article in World Anvil, not only does it give you a ton of templates to spark the imagination, but it also helps you organize everything that you write with the auto link tool. This is something that I constantly, legitimately use when writing in World Anvil. The wiki-like connections that you can add manually are great, but so often I would like things to just be naturally picked up and linked, and the auto-linking tool does that perfectly. It offers several levels of automation and distinguishes between similarly named articles to make sure that it's always linking to the correct one. To me, this is invaluable when it comes to writing my articles in a way that is not only like interesting and cool, but functional. It really takes them from being a nice repository that I can reference during prep to an active tool that I can use when running my games. It is instrumental in showing off every strange, odd, and delightful corner of my world. And if you sign up for any yearly membership using my code MEGAPHONE, you'll get 51% off. Yes, 51% using the code MEGAPHONE. Link is in the description. Thank you so much to World Anvil for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it.
But you know what? We're gonna take a little dip away from Elmville for a second. Through the mists, Kristen, you approach yellow gates of corn and wheat and waving grasses. An endless expanse of heavenly heights unfolds before you. Angels in polo shirts and with nice coiffed hair wave merrily at you as they fly by, and the celestial choirs sing with heavenly joy.
If he is doing what I believe him to be doing, he is essentially doing what he did with Fig, Emily, in the moment where Fig had that sort of death voicemail sort of situation where her dad was talking to her. I think we are getting that, but on a larger scale, because Kristen actually died, didn't just go down. Two reasons I want to point it out. Number one, I love me a good vision. I love me a good abstract poetic vision from the gods that is interpretable and not totally clear. I think it gives you a lot of fun things to play with as a DM. Reason number two that I'm bringing it up, I like the choice to include it here because theoretically, if we are following this from a purely strict timeline point of view, Kristen has already been revived, right? But I think that strict of an adherence to the timeline can really hold you back as a DM. And this is sort of a I don't necessarily want to say obvious, but this is a very minor example of how much of the timeline are you ignoring? In this case, it's been, seconds, minutes in the real time since Kristen was revived. I'm even down to flashback minutes, hours. Depends on the context, depends on why you're doing it, how effective is it going to be, how much value is it going to provide to the story. But in this case, a death vision could be so valuable, and it's something that is probably difficult to, or I shouldn't say probably, is difficult to improv in the moment. So I think that it is a very good example from Brennan here of taking something that he maybe didn't even think to improv, didn't know he wanted to go in this direction with the story, didn't feel confident improving in the moment, what have you, thought about it between recording sessions, and said, oh man, I could maybe go this direction with the plot, and this would be really good if I could deliver this information or these tones in some certain way. I could do it through a Kristen death scene or a heaven scene in this case. This could be a plot hook delivery. This could be added clues towards the intrigue of what's going on in the school. This could be a warning, which, is also a plot hook. There could be so many things that you can do with this sort of heavenly death vision. And I really, 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 really want to highlight it because I think that there are DMs that would be hesitant to do this because Kristen's revived already. We've moved on. And I don't think that you should hold yourself back from that as a DM. Even if you want to maintain pure, following everything chronologically, you could just have Kristen have forgotten about the vision until a day later, half a day later, and then the memories come flooding back. That's an existing trope within TV and within storytelling.
As he's hugging you, you feel your backpack jiggling around. You see he's clearly got his eyes closed in the hug. You feel Arthur slip out of the backpack now that he has passed the threshold of heaven. Shh, don't tell anybody. And winks and sprints into heaven as fast as he can.
He was so fast.
You see, Helio looks up and says, "What? What are you talking about?"
Oh, I was mentally saying goodbye to a friend I was remembering.
Here's the thing, Kristen. We checked. It's not your time. You have more work to do.
Oh my God.
I know you're gonna do a great job, and I care about you. And what's more, I know that you care about your new friends. And I think that's cool as hell.
Thanks.
Hey, go knock them out down there.
I will. Hey, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Why is there so much suffering in the world?
Later. And you disappear. You are vanished and snap into your blood-covered body on the floor of the cafeteria.
It's so weird that you lied to Helio. You lied to your god.
It's so weird, but also Helio lied to her? There's so much there. Are we gonna get a Gorgug death scene? I feel like I almost have to hold back until then, but okay. What we were presented with last session was that Arthur used the phoenix egg, or the phoenix feather, the phoenix shit. I don't know. He used the phoenix shit to resurrect Kristen and Gorgug, and it was like an equivalent exchange, Full Metal Alchemist sort of deal, where he had to kill himself and Mr. Gibbons in order to do so.
For life. Hey, Mr. Gibbons. See, Mr. Gibbons looks up and says, "I'm sorry, what?" And you see that Principal Eggfort takes out a gun and shoots Mr. Gibbons in the head. And then takes the gun and says, "The price must be paid." Bam! And shoots himself in the head. Gorgug and Kristen, you come back to life.
What the fuck?
Which has nothing to do with Kristen's time. That is exchange. That is barter. That is one for another. There's no, it's, we're gonna make an exception because you're not ready yet. This isn't you're too tall to ride, you're not tall enough to ride heaven. Like, so either Eggfort is lying and just did that whole performance in order to convince the living party members that he was the one that did that, and maybe he's living his own D&D adventure and just needed a way into heaven, and selfishly just saw a cleric of Helio and was like, I bet that little dead kid is going to heaven. I bet that little dead kid is going to heaven. I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna hop on that train. Which, I mean, we saw him just smuggle himself in, so that's not, like, totally unbelievable. But we're gonna have to see what happens to Gorgug, because otherwise, like, if the Phoenix shit is the reason that Kristen is back, then Helio just straight up lied to her. Or took credit for something that, he was not responsible for? Strange times at Fantasy High.
Gorgug, you snap into not wakefulness, but some strange pale consciousness, and you behold a dim forest stretching out around you.
Oh no.
The leaves fall with a shriek and a whimper, and blood runs from the bark of this strange forest.
Try to catch a leaf.
It slices your hand.
Ow!
And then you look through your hand to see the ground beneath it.
What?
You hear a voice next to you as the leaves part and the spectral figure of Mr. Gibbons stands up. Oh, wow. Some really powerful feelings here.
What happened?
Well,
Why are you here?
Last thing I saw, my boss murdered me. And there's a lot of powerful feelings there. His eyes start to glow a little red. Yeah, I think it's gonna take me a while to process these feelings. Yeah, I think I have some unfinished business.
Okay, what?
Yeah.
You're looking
I
awful.
need to have a little talk.
I'm running.
You snap awake in your body on the cafeteria floor.
Oh my God, he's gonna haunt you forever.
You are.
Okay. So, speaking of things that you can accomplish with a death scene, you can set up a recurring villain that they will likely have to fight later. Maybe this episode, maybe next episode, maybe the finale. I don't know. Probably not the finale. That's crazy. Okay, so Gorgug was absolutely brought back by the Phoenix shit. Like the Phoenix poop absolutely brought Gorgug back. So Helio's lying. Probably. To me, this implies that the Phoenix egg was the reason for them coming back, which means that Eggfort did resurrect them. But it also seems like potentially Eggfort has ulterior motives. Maybe he's just, making the best of a bad situation. I guess it's possible. But there was the slight hinting of not concentration, but the slight hinting of purpose to Eggfort that makes me question if, he may have had this plan, maybe not specifically with Kristen, but with someone, Like whenever, say, a paladin or a cleric or whoever dies, maybe he has considered this of like, oh man, if they die, I'll do the Phoenix egg shit and then I can get into heaven. I mean, obviously implies some things about his past that he thinks he would be denied. And interesting that they don't seem, or Helio at least, doesn't seem to know how Kristen died, or else he would have presumably known that Eggfort was there. Unless Eggfort didn't somehow latched onto her soul in a way that Helio couldn't track. I don't know. A lot of weird shit going on here. We'll have to see. This has definitely evoked a lot of intrigue within me. I love these sequences. These are cool.
She'll save us all. Is she safe?
I died.
Yeah, let's get Doreen.
Issues
There
are
was
pretty
a
bad,
murder
right?
suicide situation.
I
Maureen
died.
is dead.
What?
You died.
I
Where's
died.
Doreen?
You died.
You died, and you also died.
I know.
They
I
came
met
in. They
God.
had a sort of a rising phoenix situation with some sort of egg that came open, and big guy shot little guy, shot himself, dead.
That's
Brought you guys back.
So cool.
Wait,
and I'm
Mr.
so pissed I missed it.
Mr. Gibbons?
That's awesome.
I killed Doreen, but I didn't mean to. She was attacking me, and then she came back to herself right at the end and gave a really, really intense speech about how it's my fault and I'm gonna be haunted by it for the rest of my life.
I did hear some of that.
And she said something about how the faculty was in on this somehow. So
Yes.
we got to talk to the cops before another teacher sees, because if another teacher sees this, they might be in on this. They might
And they might put this on. We need to hide, I think, and get cleaned up.
You guys.
Well, I don't know if we should hide.
I do like, at least for the start of this, because, you know, there's a conspiracy of some kind. I may not necessarily call it political intrigue, but there is some manner of conspiracy. And I like, at least for the first introduction of said conspiracy, pinning it on one faction. Like, really, like, I would have hated it, I think, if Doreen had been like, everyone's in on it. Trust nobody. No, thank you. I like it being like, oh, the faculty. Because then they can go to the cops, they can go to their parents, they can go to the other students with some amount of trepidation, because obviously there's a connection between the faculty and the students. And there's a connection between the faculty and probably several other organizations. So they know that other organizations could be in on it. But at least at the start, they can just center their mind around avoid the faculty. And even if other people do turn out to be in on it, it will not paralyze them in terms of decisions. Because I think it's okay for it to be a town-ranging conspiracy, but you don't want to start them there before they get other clues, other evidence, other directions of investigation. Because if you just say everyone's in on it, then it's like, okay, well, what the fuck do we do then? Their only direction is avoid faculty. But that is a good direction because it gives them a lot of other ways that they could go with it. Doesn't, I think, evoke as much analysis paralysis.
You guys, this is exactly what teenagers have suspected all along. Adults are the bad ones.
Yeah, we can't go to the cops. What if the cops are in on it as well?
Yeah.
The cops are not in on it. My mom's a cop, and she's cool.
Your mom's
Yeah,
a cop?
how old
My
is
mom's
she?
a cop.
a
Is
cop?
she 19 or under?
Oh.
Then I don't trust her.
I know that it may appear as though this is going against my point. I will be stubborn. And I will say, I don't think it does. I think even in a scenario where you single out a particular faction, they are still worried. X could be in on it. Y could be in on it. Everybody could be in on it. What have you. They are still, the players are going to naturally go that direction. You don't want to start them there because even with their further suspicions of people beyond the faculty, they're still not suspecting everybody. Fig specifically suspects adults, which, you know, I think is very representative of her character. I think it's good character work right there. That she just immediately, the one good adult that she was aware of died, and she's like, all of them, Doreen, no. I think that was a good choice on her part. But all of it is representative of how paranoid players will instantly get the moment that they're faced with a conspiracy. So, at least on initial introduction, keeping that conspiracy contained, small, narrow. And you can expand it further as they go on, as they discover, you know, safe havens, safe pockets, people that prove themselves to them. Because even like right here, you see Fig saying, then I don't trust her. You can start to expand the conspiracy in conjunction with the party gaining people that they trust, whittling down the people that might be in on it, and finding specific persons that they can work with or specific directions of inquiry. Maybe, you know, they just can't be in Solace. Maybe they have to take it on the road, what have you. So I like this. I like starting it out narrow, even though they are immediately taking it wider. I think it's representative that if you give your players this much, they're immediately going to assume this much. So if, so let's say this is the entire space, you don't want to start them out wide and have them, go over the boundary of reason.
If not,
Okay.
if we don't go to his mom, where
Can
do
I
we
do
want
like
to
I
an
don't
go?
wanna
investigate
do
check
it.
to see what I would think if I was like a cop, like
Yeah.
with the survey the scene?
Go ahead and make an investigate check.
Cool.
12.
You look around the space. You see that there is the big corn ooze. What you think about this as basics for a cop is Arthur Eggfort's wound looks self-administered, right? And the wound Mr. Gibbons will be traceable to Arthur Eggfort's gun. Something confusing happened here that doesn't look like 6 kids did this whole thing.
Right.
You also discover what you think is like the source of like where the corn ooze came from. There is one barrel, not in the pantry where it was headed towards, but in the back of the kitchen. There's one barrel that it looked like it crawled out of.
Oh, can I go investigate what's in there?
Yeah. If you want to go investigate, absolutely.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna use thaumaturgy to like open it, so I'm like I don't have to be near
It's actually
it.
already open. The barrel was. It looked like the barrel that Doreen was serving out of.
Oh,
earlier
can
that day.
we?
Can I cast Detect Magic on that barrel?
Yeah, go for it.
I cast Detect Magic on the barrel.
Adine's eyes glow brilliant blue. You detect a little trace of a Mage Hand spell. And the Mage Hand spell comes from a young elven caster who's you. This was the barrel you lifted Kristen's book out of at lunch earlier today.
But right. I remember that. But wait. Wait, okay. Adine detects her own Mage Hand cantrip from earlier in the day. It had this barrel is the barrel that was used that Kristen's book was thrown into. Wait. Because there was there was a whole thing about how it was like all perverted, right? It was runes against Helio and Soul. The parchment that was animating the ooze. Could the parchment have been from her book? Couldn't have. Feels like it couldn't have, but could it have been? You look at it and see there are runes here from the strange realm of the Nightmare King, runes of darkness and midnight, runes against Helios and Soul. This is a page of darkness and a warping of the true gospel. This is a page of darkness, and it is a testimony to the force of night and darkness itself, a piece of horrible dark magic. Now, let's go back to my fantasy, or to my FH1 notes, when they actually got in to the school. Sam Nightingale, no. Johnny Spells, no. Ostentatia Wallace, no. I'm remembering something, because someone fucked with her book earlier, and who threw it in the vat? I think it was the dick football player guy. I think it might have been Rag Barkrock. Yeah, Dick and Blood Rush player. Coach Daybreak, Dane Blade. Bro, I gotta get in there. Okay, this is the true theory experience. We're going back to episode 1. 2 seniors, blonde-haired giants.
Senior jock kid.
Yeah.
Who's like wearing his leather jacket. And the other one out, and you see to it, it's going, "Hi, we're voting today to reinstate prom king and queen. Hi, we're voting today. We're having a vote today. Hi, can I interest you in a flyer?"
Yes, actually.
Just a small note, I guess, that I'll add to FH1. Voting today to, and I'll put extra quotes on it, reinstate prom king and queen. Did not catch my attention at first. Still doesn't really feel that substantial, but maybe it's something.
Oh, it's great to have you, kiddo. That's great. I love that. I'm gonna need you to make an opposed athletics check.
Right here, right here.
Where's athletics? Oh, 2, 7.
We're all just getting our asses.
Yeah.
You see that you are shoved to the ground, and your backpack goes everywhere, and your Bible sort of spills out of your hand.
No.
And you see that there is a tall.
Okay. There was maybe something right there. Maybe something right there. It was Zane Darkshadow. Pushed Kristen. Zane Darkshadow pushed Kristen in the hallway, and Brennan specifically narrated that her Bible spills out of her hand.
Looks like an elf, but like his skin is like deathly pale. He's got like black hair hanging, and he's got like a mesh shirt with like a belt kind of like diagonal across it, and like sort of like bondage pants, like sort of that kind of like Hot Topic look. And you see he's got like a rat on his shoulder, and he's got like spider web designs on some fingerless gloves. And you see he goes, "What's up, cleric? How's it going?"
Did you do that on purpose?
I don't know. Did God curse us to live on purpose?
Ooh, see, let's start from the beginning, okay? Any curse you may feel is probably human-made, because we were all made just a little bit off.
Oh, I know I was made off. My heart is fucking broken.
Okay, look.
You see that the coach helps you up and hands your Bible to you and goes like,
The coach? Coach Daybreak? You're telling me. You're looking me in my eyes right now, Brennan. And telling me that Coach Daybreak handed her back her Bible? Interesting. My mic didn't cooperate with that bit. All right. Coach Daybreak handed her back her Bible. He had possession of it. I mean, what are the chances that former Nightmare King enforcer has a little bit of a sleight of hand proficiency? Maybe could slip a page in there without anybody noticing. Maybe even paid Zane to bump into her? I don't know. Okay, now who takes it out of her hand and throws it in? Because I do also think it's Rog. I don't think that Zane is the one that throws it into the vat. All right, let's see.
grabs your Bible.
Right here.
12.
Cool. You see that Rog, the half-orc jock, grabs your Bible out of your hand and tosses it into the kitchen. And you see it goes and spins and lands in a big vat of the cream corn and sinks into it. And you see he goes, "That's what you get for boring what you did. That's what you get for that."
Good thing I already know that whole thing by heart.
I cast Mage Hand and pull the book out of the creamed corn.
Cool. You see that as you go to start pulling the book out of the cream corn, The book pops out. It's covered in creamed corn, and there's a ton of goop all over it. See, the lunch lady says, "All right, everybody, you all gotta go. Everybody, go sit down." Rog says, "Think about it next time. Who the fuck is think about it?"
Oh, don't even bother me. He's a fucking oaf.
You guys,
Bro, I feel like I've nailed this shit. I feel like I have nailed it. Coach Daybreak is the one who handed her Bible after Zane Darkshadow knocked it out of her hand. He knocks it out of her hand. Maybe Daybreak and Zane are like in on it together. I actually doubt it. I think Zane is going to be the unlikely accomplice for the party, not for Coach Daybreak. So he had possession of it. All he needed to do is slip the page inside of the Bible, and then as long as she didn't open it by the end of the day, which I think there's a decent shot of, he would then have his bruiser, his boy, Rog, one of the Blood Rush bruisers, throw it into the creamed corn. And then even if shit comes back on him, he can just be like, well, I do remember Zane knocking it out of your hand. Maybe he slipped something inside of it. Coach Daybreak has two different fall guys. And I'm sure that he didn't even just ask Rog straight up. He probably just told Rog that Kristen said some shit about who's the guy that he loves? Dane? Yeah, the quarterback. I'm sure that the way that this went down is, I think Daybreak, puppeteer, spider, mastermind, maybe even a mastermind rogue. I don't think that had come out yet. Maybe it had. I think that he potentially orchestrated and or just waited for opportunity to strike in terms of when would he have access to Kristen's Bible. He gets access with Zane. He says, oh, perfect. Slips the dark magic note in there. Now he knows he's got fall guy number one with Zane Darkshadow. He can blame it all on him. Second thing, he knows that Rog blows up anytime that he perceives someone as fucking with Dane. And so all Daybreak has to do is tell Rog, hey, I heard Kristen talking shit on Dane Blade. He knows that'll send Rog into a fucking frenzy. Hopefully he'll go brrr with the thing. And maybe he even planted something about the Bible and the creamed corn, because otherwise that seems a little coincidental. That seems a bit tough. I will say, she says that Adine in episode 3 says that they find evidence of Mage Hand cast by her. Maybe it was just the most recent one cast by her. It's possible that Rog, was just going to throw the Bible, and then there was like a course correction, potentially, by a separate Mage Hand cast by Coach Daybreak. I could see it. I'm just saying, a lot of this shit points back to Daybreak. Also, okay, this is a stupid part of the theory, but I'm still going to write it down. I will also say, Coach Daybreak, more like Coach, I'm going to break the day and plunge the land into eternal darkness. Because Daybreak could obviously be the sun breaking the horizon. That's what we all suspect. But it could also be, I'm going to break the fucking day over my knee. Darkness forever, baby. I'm just saying. I feel like I am cooking right now. Oh, this is silly. Yeah. I'll say the person I am most suspicious of in the entire show right now, Coach Daybreak.
He comes into the cafeteria. He looks into the room, sees Arthur and sees Mr. Gibbons and Doreen, and goes. And you see fire crackling in his mouth, and he. Oh no! All right, what happened? What happened? Are we in danger? Is whoever did this still loose?
We don't know what happened, but there was a scream, and then the lunch lady went crazy, and there was something in her eyes that was demonic in some way. She was possessed, I think. And
It
then
all started with one barrel of creamed corn. And
Yes,
it's right
yes,
here.
There's
This-
runes
this-
in the corn barrel, and some monster came out of it and possessed the lunch lady who attacked us
And we
along with the
both
monster.
died, and then Arthur killed.
He used the last Phoenix
Rising
eggs.
Phoenix. He had a Phoenix egg.
Yes.
The what? He had a phoenix egg?
He had a Phoenix egg, and then he shot.
There's only one of the. Phoenixes famously don't lay eggs. They die, turn into ash. And that's like the number one thing about
I
phoenixes.
don't fucking know what you want us to tell you, all right? We just told you what the fuck
I'm
happened.
scrambling to figure out.
Did you guys just hear what I heard? I heard Vice Principal Goldenhorde casting some doubt, some aspersions on Arthur's method of resurrection. Now, this could just be a funny bit. We always have to, in our theory crafting, we always have to keep in mind that it all could just be a funny bit, but it could also be more. And I think that the fact that the players are also suspicious on Rog for potentially chucking the Bible, I think reaffirms my kind of thought process that I shouldn't just take it as fun, fancy time. There's foreshadowing, which there should be. There should be foreshadowing, even in a fun, lighthearted, well, I don't know about lighthearted for Fantasy High so far, but even in a fun times, fun place, D&D campaign, show, whatever, there should still be a good narrative, a plot, things that we care about, drama, conflict, and a lot of those things, even if they don't necessarily require foreshadowing, they certainly benefit from it. And that is a lot of what we're looking at here, is potential foreshadowings to things that will happen later so that they come less out of nowhere. And especially with the whole Helio just saying, it's not your time, and seeming to not relate the Phoenix egg necessarily, I think there's some, and then Vice Principal Goldenhorde saying that they do not lay eggs famously. I don't know. It seems like there's possibly something afoot with Arthur's whole ritual. I don't know.
You see, he looks at them too. You see, he says, very well. You see, he says, Porter, Jace, you will stay in there. Make sure no students go in. The big rock guy with the warhammer says, yeah, so, take a look. And you see that the half-elf sort of sorcerer-looking guy says, okay, is there a problem? Is something kind of going that doesn't... And he looks in and sees the bodies and goes, oh my God! Screams, they rush in.
What was the reaction of the other guy?
The rock guy?
The rock guy.
Make an insight check.
Oh, baby, this is gonna be so good. That's gonna be a 20, not nat, but as close to it as you can get.
The Earth Genasi, the barbarian, kind of rocky-looking guy, doesn't look surprised. You see, they both walk in there. You see, Goldenhorde says, "You with me right now," and he walks to a small classroom that's empty because the school's been let out. Opens it up, walks in, closes the door behind him, and he goes, all right, Mr. Gibbons is dead. Listen, are you...
Okay. I don't know why I'm doing jazz hands. This information. Porter, the Earth Genasi, does not look surprised. Number one, I like that use of insight. Not a lie detector, not a not a mind reading thing. Just looks at what is there and attempts to pair that with the context that it is in to derive deeper truth. So just giving them, hey, he's looking at all of this and he doesn't seem surprised to see it. Thumbs up on that insight. Second thing, Rog is a barbarian, clearly. Coach Daybreak is probably working quite often with the barbarian teacher to get members for the Blood Rush team. Wouldn't surprise me at the very least. And obviously, Jace could be putting it on. I mean, he's the sorcery teacher. He's a half-elf. Probably got charisma out the wazoo. He could be decepting. I don't know. All roads so far, to me at least, lead back to Daybreak.
We're going to take care of this, all right? You see, he walks out.
Bye.
He walks out. Oh, God. After a little while, Coach Daybreak comes in. You see that Coach Daybreak looks over and looks at you, especially Kristen, and goes, "Gosh, kiddo, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, guys." Yeah. He's got a big stack of owlbear, like sweatpants and sweatshirts, and he's like,
Are we all on the team now?
"No, your shit's covered in blood."
Oh.
Sorry, your stuff.
It's okay. I'm on my way out.
I jumped to a really weird conclusion.
You see, he says, if you want to hit the showers and get cleaned up before your folks get here, here's some towels, here's some clothes. You can go for it. All right?
Can I sense motive on this guy?
Do an insight check, yeah.
6.
This is a good and decent man.
I
He's
could have told
giving
you that. I've
clean
grown
clothes.
up with him.
I want to do an insight check as well.
Yeah, go for it.
That one.
That one? This guy, it's weird because you are a half-orc. This guy could be your dad.
Dad?
Yeah. That's exactly what a nat 1 gets all of us. This could be your dad. Inside check about everything.
Okay, I will say this is a risk of intrigue plots, insight, all of these sort of checks where you have to come up with a fail condition that does not give away the success condition, right? Because let's say you're doing an athletics check to jump over a gap. The success condition is, congratulations, you're on the other side. Fail condition, you don't do that. Maybe you're in the gap, maybe you just, fail the jump, maybe you're hanging, whatever. There's a very clear fail condition that does not, essentially attain the success condition. Knowledge-based checks are different. So when you're doing something like an insight, the failure, you have to make sure that them failing the insight check is not just the opposite of whatever the success would be. So I think good and decent man, fine. Even though I don't believe it for a goddamn second. But still fine. Because it's what is so clearly obvious from everything else that has been established about him. That is like part of his aesthetic so far. So all that's telling you is you did not delve beneath the surface. And the nat 1 of it could be your dad. Also a great way to go with it. So I think that both of those are really solid ways to handle a failure on a knowledge check I shouldn't just say a knowledge check, like that's a real thing. A check where the success state is you gaining additional knowledge. You have to make sure that the fail state does not just get you that knowledge in reverse. And it's one of the, basically just an issue of the fact that the players can see the number on the die. So they know, or at least they can guess as to whether or not they failed or not. Obviously, the characters in fiction would have no idea, clearly. This is purely a problem of even accidental metagaming. Even if your players don't want to metagame, if if they get a 2 and you tell them what is essentially the opposite of the truth, they might suss out the truth just based on that, whether or not their brains even want to. So I think that sticking with things that just reinforce existing aesthetic or existing theming, I think is very, very good. Anything that is readily ostensible, sticking with that for an insight, or taking it in a silly direction, like it could be your dad. The kind of second order effect, or the second layer of discussion, is repetition of the same check. I've known some tables that say, if someone insight checks someone, they're the only ones that get to insight check them. I think that can be fine, but it does push people into certain roles based on their modifiers, which, debatable whether or not that's a good thing for your table. And then I think the other direction that I would go with it is group checks, where you have everyone present roll, and then if more than half of them succeed, everyone succeeds. If more than half of them fail, everyone fails. It's a good way to get the entire group involved and make sure that you don't just have people rolling until they get a success. Because say that all 5 of them wanted to roll insight here, chances are one of them succeeds. The writers don't even matter. Just like on probability, the likelihood that one of them gets a high roll on the 20 is high if you have all 5 of them roll, and only one of them needs to succeed in order for them to essentially all get that information. Now, so that's where I would go with this if we get to the point where there's half or more people involved. Right now, I don't think Rizz is there. So right now, 2 out of 5 of them have asked. If it were my table, if a third person asked, I'd probably say no. If next time, if more than half of you or half or more are going to want to do the exact same check, we just need to roll a group check. And if you want to do it more individualized, I'm down with because you could essentially read this as someone attempted the check and they had help. Right? Because only 2 D20s were rolled. Help gives you advantage. The difference between those is obviously they were each using their own individual modifier, but c'est la vie, there's not too much of a difference, I would say. So once we pass that point, once we pass the point of being able to mostly interpret it as the help action, that's where I would go into group check territory.
I'm gonna go check on those kids. It doesn't seem right that they're all alone. You see that Jace says, well, hey man, they're not alone. They have each other. And they kind of do have each other because they've missed the window to form an adventuring party. So they're kind of de facto one, unless they leave school. There's a couple options open. All right, well, I'm gonna go log this stuff in the sort of arcane register. You have a good one, man. And you see that Jace leaves and Porter just sort of guards the door for the rest of the time that you're there.
Cool. I just wait, I guess.
About 15 minutes after that, cops show up.
Okay.
And your mom's there.
Okay.
They come in, they start to sort of put the tape up. You see that there's this old-looking gnome who's...
Love that. I don't know if it's come up in Fantasy High so far, but the aspect of, hey, all of this just happened, things have settled down, what do you do? Person says, wait, and you go, okay, you wait. and we immediately jump forward to the next thing of interest. The only caveat there is that it depends on how far away that next thing of interest is. I think 15 minutes, easy. Skip the time skip the time gap. But I think it is somewhat of a stylistic choice for a DM in that sort of situation where the player just says, wait. How long before you check in with them to see if they want to do something else, if there is just more waiting? Because I'm sure that Rizz wouldn't have waited there for 8 hours, right? Even if Porter was there for 8 hours, I think you would have tried to get away at some point. So my instinct there is go by like half hour. So it's like half hour goes by. Pause a second to let the player interrupt. Hour goes by. Pause for a second to let the player interrupt. Like that's sort of the kind of motif that I would run with until either the player interrupts me as the time is passing, or something about the scene changes. So I would even interrupt it when, say Porter just leaves at some point. Say, room's empty. I would interrupt it, ask them what they want to do. If they just want to continue waiting, then we go back to the time cycling. But those time chunks, they're probably going to change depending on context. But I think that broadly, how you run those as a DM can be kind of a stylistic, somewhat defining thing. Maybe not defining, that's not the right word, but it can be a part of your style. And how often, it also depends on how often your players wait.
And I ain't seen a phoenix egg since way back in 11-12, you know what I'm talking about? Look at this poor son of a bitch.
You see that your mom walks up next to him. She says, Dusty, what are we looking here in terms of arcane? He's like,
Arcane. I'll tell you, Sklandra, you wish this was arcane. This is pure divine magic. Thing got summoned up some kind of dark, I don't know, antithesis, right? He says, you ever heard that theory about the higher planes and the lower planes?
I mean, look. I'm just saying that I feel real goddamn confident about my Daybreak theory. Like, saying it's all divinely related and specifically calling out this sort of parallel kind of situation here feels very easy to me that a fiend, air quotes, one of the lower evils, could easily masquerade as one of the goods, considering that it seems like in this cosmology, they used to be one of the goods. Wouldn't be too much of a stretch to get back to that, at least for a bit of dissecting.
For a moment when maybe the other guys turned around or something to kind of let my mom know I'm there. Kind of
cool.
give her
make a sleight of hand check to get your mom's attention.
Sure. Pretty good. 21.
Awesome. You see that your mom, her eyes dart over to you hiding, and you see that she's sort of writing things in a notebook. She looks over at you and goes, No, condom. Rizz.
I wanted to call you. I made friends.
You made friends? Oh, sweetheart, that's great.
They didn't trust the cops.
Why are you in the murder scene?
I was here.
You were here present?
I was one of the kids, yeah.
God! Go, sneak out the window. Meet me in the parking lot.
Okay. Sneak out.
Cool, give me a stealth check.
Oh, it's so cute how much Rizz trusts his mom. I like that as a character trait for a character with an alive mom. Rare in heroic adventures. Oh, that's so cute. And I know someone mentioned it on in the Fantasy High 1 Ep 1 comments of, oh, it's so sad that you that we skipped over the Rizz scene. That was the perfect example of Pet the Dog, which it totally was. Pet the Dog or Save the Cat, the antithesis of kicking the dog, right? She poured her milk into Rizz's bowl. It's just like when you see the hero in an old movie that saves a cat from a tree. It's in a way to immediately let us know this is a good person. No matter what they may be involved in, no matter what implications might come their way, no matter what other people want you to think about them, deep down, they're good. Obviously, this is a trope. This is a tool. It has been subverted many times before. Brennan could absolutely be doing it now, but I'll be shocked. I'll be surprised because Rizz's mom seems cool. Rizz's mom seems super nice, which, you know, totally in line with her save the cat moment earlier.
You see, he looks at you. He looks at you and says, "Yeah, this guy gets it." He makes genuine eye contact with you and immediately is like, "I like this guy." See, he goes like, "Yeah, all right."
The ball. Don't encourage it.
See, he goes, so basically, we're going to be taking a lot of dream crystals and we're going to be putting them up over the school. These are just basically going to be recording clairaudience and clairvoyance information, so just sound and picture. It's basically just a security system, so we're going to be able to see what's going on at the school, so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. Boo!
Wow, Rizz, you really turned on him.
You see that?
Pick a side.
There's a drow kid in the very back who's like a junior or something who goes like, "Police state! Fucking police state!"
Panopticon.
You see that the drow goes like, "That fuck yeah!"
Yeah, dude.
You see that Biz goes, "It's okay. I see that we're having some negative reaction. That's understandable. Actually, guys, it's super cool. And if you're interested in learning how it works..."
Applause.
Go ahead and make the charisma check.
Great. 10.
You clap a little bit, and you see that other people turn to look for you because they're confused if you like this or not.
I have a question.
Yeah, question.
Isn't it true that these crystals can be magically manipulated?
Oh, dream crystals are extremely complicated pieces of arcana tech, but they are a very skilled or proficient technician.
So perhaps a member of the faculty?
Huh?
Why
don't we have this conversation with him later?
Yeah.
All right. This seems more complicated than I was ready for, and I'm not prepared. So I'm gonna leave it there. Let's go, Owl Bears! Hoot!
Growl!
Hoot!
Growl!
Hoot!
Growl!
He looks so psyched that worked. He
It's
just
weird that we
fucking
say
fist
growl
bumps.
rather than actually growling.
And growl flies out of there.
Just, I mean, not too big, but I will say, dream crystals, specifically, not just magic crystals, not arcana crystals, not even coaxium crystals, not even a made-up word. Dream? Doesn't sound very arcane off the top of my head. Sounds like nightmare. Like the Nightmare King, you might say. Which does close a gap, potentially, in one of my questions from episode 2 in my theorizing of what's the motive here? Why are we doing this? It doesn't seem to be to cause actual deaths amongst the student body, but now I think we have our answer. If they can cause a stir, a ruckus, kill a bunch of people, whoever those people may be, it might be that they didn't even care who ended up dying in the Great Doreen incident of 1200. All they cared about was that there was a lot of damage done. Maybe, hopefully, some people die. And then you can introduce dream crystals to the school. I'm just saying, we haven't heard anyone else related to or adjacent to dreams other than the Nightmare King.
This will help in my search for deep answers.
Yes, it should. If you really crack in there, you'll find it. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you. She goes back to stocking books. We'll dip out to the parking lot.
I think maybe I should hide in one of your backpacks because I'm the ball, and I don't
Yeah.
think this cool girl's gonna want to.
Yeah,
talk
hide
about
in my backpack. I'm gonna go over to her with my flask.
I
I'm
like
gonna
that.
I'm gonna
love that
cast
idea.
friends.
Can I hop in her
cast
backpack?
friends on the liquor in my flask
So
so that anyone who drinks from it will have friends cast on them?
that's for sure not how the spell is used, but I'm going to allow it because it's cool.
I'm gonna just stay kind of by.
That's for sure not how the spell is used, but I'm going to allow it because it's cool. That's okay. I don't remember how much of it made the cut, but I talked about rule of cool type stuff in the last episode, and unfortunately, this is one that I probably wouldn't allow just because it is so vastly repeatable. And that's, when we talked about I think I did talk about the cornhole, and Rizz jumping in there. It's, there are things that are cool, and then there are things that are cool and very repeatable. So if you're down with her doing this forever, I think that's something that you at least need to consider. The on-the-spot enchanting of a liquid that then delivers the effects of said liquid, basically bypassing verbal and somatic components. Now, I'm always down to work with my players. I might not necessarily say like, yeah, that totally works. It might be like, that's like a very non-standard use case. I talked last episode about how, I might make something in a non-standard use case like a save or suck, but in this case it's a cantrip, so you can just repeat it over and over. I might say, that to crystallize essentially the friend's cantrip, to make it whole, to make it solid, to make it permanent, or at least temporary, within a physical form, you need to pump some more juice into it. You might need to maybe up the amount of magical energy that you are placing into it. Maybe a first level spell slot. Something like that. And then off table, I would look into other spells. Because, I would look into like, okay, is that like as good as Charm Person? Is that better? Like, what are we... I would want to look into some other spells that do similar things, see how much they generally cost, and see about that. And this comes up all the time. The moment that you introduce something that may be meant more as soft magic, like Dusty the Cop's permanent detect magic eyes, like all of the Arcana tech in the AV room. The moment that you start, in D&D specifically, not like all over the place, the moment that you start making these effects permanent, anything like that, the moment that you start saying like, oh yeah, like enchantment is a thing and you can permanently do it and that's fine, you start opening up a big can of worms. It's why, magic items require ingredients and money to be able to create, and for the person that can create them without ingredients or money, the artificer, they can only have a certain amount at a time. It's all temporary, and so they can't do it, over and over and over to their heart's content. So what I'm getting at with all this in regards to Fig's friend's cantrip is that I very much understand where her mind is at. She has seen that permanent enchantment is not only possible, You know, it's not like just seeing like a permanent teleportation circle and then saying, oh, how did that get there? And it's like, oh, a year of enchanting, a year of casting this spell with a material cost over and over until the magic soaks into the earth. You know, it seems like enchantment of physical objects is something that's much more easily accessible. And so I think that this mindset is very natural, but I also think that the way to take that as the DM is saying, okay, well, we got to up the cost on that. There has to be a reason that you would ever cast the normal Friends cantrip, which in this case is essentially if you can't also convince them to drink the liquid, which fair enough. Like in this scenario, there is still a barrier towards, you know, getting the friends into their system. They have to actually, you know, drink the shit. I would say that there is an amount of trade-off there, but I think that the trade-off of, okay, there is now a essentially you're trading difficulty in applying the magic for discretion and sneakiness, you know, all of these things that I think in terms of specifically an enchantment cantrip, a mind-altering cantrip, the value of discretion and the value of essentially stealth is way higher than the trade-off of it being theoretically more difficult to apply, because it's not that difficult. And the Friends cantrip is very easy to apply. You gotta just snap your fingers and do it. But it obviously has its own inherent downsides. Even as I processed it through talking about it, I think there's something to be said for the fact that there is still like a trade-off there. It's not like a whole upgrade. I also think if you don't want to play around with the cost as the DM, to actually cast it, you could play around with with any negatives inherent within the spell. So I think there's also something to be said for, you could play around with that. You could play around with the duration of the cantrip. So the cantrip normally lasts for a minute. You might say like, oh, you know, once you enchant the liquor, clock's ticking. So, you know, it'll take effect when they drink it, but it'll already have started to degrade. And I'm not saying that Brennan should necessarily do all of this in the moment. This could be something that you think about off table. So like you say yes in the moment because you think it's really damn cool. And then afterward, maybe you sit down with Emily and say like, okay, like, could you see yourself using this again? Because obviously I have established this as a thing you can do. And if you are going to use it again, we should talk through it. Would you want the casting to be maybe a little bit more expensive? Maybe, and obviously not would you want, but, you know, maybe be like, I don't know if I can, you know, just totally call it equivalent. I want to kind of talk through the nitty gritty. I think it's very fair to just say yes in the moment to keep the pace of the session up. Super important. But definitely sit down as a DM and think, am I okay with her potentially doing this in any future scenario? Any scenario where there is liquid, I am establishing that she can throw friends on that and the people that drink it will come under the effect. Am I comfortable with that? Honestly, the more I've even talked, maybe Friends is a good example of one that might not need any modification purely because Friends already has a pretty huge downside. You know.
Also, do you know where Johnny lives?
Johnny doesn't live anywhere. He hangs out at the fucking gas station by the highway.
Oh, like often? Like if we like went there in the evening, would he be there? Or
Sam and he have been like
sort of going steady for like basically the whole summer, and he for real is like I've never even seen him lie down. Like I don't know if he has a home or if he even sleeps or whatever. But like he like obviously like is around town a lot. He hangs out with like a group of dudes that are all like sketchy. You know what I mean? Like
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
They sound cool.
but like I know that they're like he has like a souped up car and like it's like a super fast car and he has like his motorcycle and stuff and there's like a garage over by the highway. But like it's a really seedy part of town. Like only fucking losers live over there.
Sorry, I'm wondering, like, are you saying that you're like worried? Like, do you trust Johnny, or what are you worried about with Sam?
Make another persuasion check with advantage this time.
Can I make a perception check?
Well, it's gonna be 24.
13 on
or
my
it's gonna be 24.
24. You see, she looks at you and says, "Do you remember a girl named Penny Luckstone?"
Rizz throws up in your backpack.
I see the
She says,
vomit
"I'm
dripping
sorry."
from your backpack.
Did your backpack just make a fucking... It stinks in
Did your
here!
Tupperware spill?
Yeah, of course. My Tupperware spilled.
What
you
kind
know,
of gross fucking lunch does your dad pack you that you fucking...
he's generally eating. It's just a lot of citrus and raw meat. So I'm gonna go clean this out. But hey, hit me up if you ever need that party. All right. Actually, do you mind if I leave my backpack here? I'm gonna go grab.
The back... I would rather you stay and the backpack go.
Okay, you know what? Actually, I just chuck my backpack. I like throwing. I aim for him.
Athletics check to try to.
Can I try it?
Okay, I like it. I like the commitment to flavor, but not in a way that will totally derail progression. You know, if she had been like, "Oh, all of you need to leave. You're all so gross and weird now." Off of that, one comment from Murph, I wouldn't have been into that. But her saying her not thinking "Oh, is something weird in your backpack? Let me see the backpack." I wouldn't essentially want to strap Murph with a ton of consequences. But just get the backpack out of here, I think is super reasonable, super fair, because she even said it right there to Fabian, "I'd rather you stay in the backpack go." And they're still going to get plenty of progression out of this. Fig is not in any trouble of being kicked away. And this is something that I don't want to say necessarily a hard line to walk, but it's definitely not standalone, super easy to accomplish, where you hand down what looks like a consequence just purely off of a flavor thing that a character said, but you have to keep in mind what an actual consequence would look like here. And I think an actual consequence would be them totally failing this social interaction with this girl. And as long as that remains intact, as long as they are not losing progress with her, I wouldn't call it a real consequence. It is just kind of adhering to the flavor within the fiction, which is super fun. Playing out these sorts of very funny aspects are going to make your players more encouraged to be creative and funny and loose, especially if things still work out when they do it. I think one of the classic D&D sort of archetypes or visions is this party that is constantly doing wacky, funny bullshit, but also accomplish their goals. It's the classic Guardians of the Galaxy funny misfits sort of vibe, and you can really accomplish that as a DM if you adhere to the funny stuff, I throw up in the backpack, but simultaneously do not remove progress, do not remove progression. You just maybe require a little bit something of them, like getting rid of the backpack. That is just like it's an in-fiction response that does play out in the fiction and has like a result in the fiction. It changes what is happening, but it doesn't deter or remove progress towards their goals. So I really like that. I really, really like that.
Nope, 9.
So you go leap for it, Gorgug. I'm gonna say that you, Rizz, take 6 points of damage as you are hurled skyward and slam into a car. Glass shatters. Weep, weep, weep.
I'll just grab the backpack and run.
You see, Palimpsest says, no, looks over and says, I think that freak loser just stole your backpack out of that car you hit.
Oh, what a fucking loser!
Oh, get that back, you fucking freak!
No,
What's your
you know-
deal? You're a
hey.
fucking creep. This kid's a
No.
fucking creep.
No, it's okay. I'll take care of it. And then I pretend to throw fire at him, but it's just thaumaturgy. Am I allowed to do
Yeah,
that?
for sure.
So I'm like, I'll take care of it. But it's not, it doesn't actually, it's not fire.
You see, she goes, Jesus Christ, you are a fucking insane bitch, and I fucking love it.
Yes,
yes.
I just run around the corner. Like the building.
And again, even just to follow up, even like the 6 points of damage, as long as they get a short rest, or ideally even a long rest between now and their next combat, Rizz is fine. You know, half of your HP in a very low combat, very seemingly safe setting is really not that much to lose. So I like a lot of these. You would almost call them like flavor or ribbon consequences, where they are not actually, again, impeding their progress, but they are adding like grounding and mechanical sort of representation of what he tried to do, right? It is mechanical acknowledgement of the funny thing that he did. Again, without impeding any of their progress. So I really, I like it a lot.
Bad. 9.
It's okay because it's the easiest thing in the world to find as a DC 5 check.
Right.
You see this dwarven girl is laid up in the nurse's office. She's on a bed. She's got her like fists balled up and is drooling. One of her eyes is kind of like. And you see that the school nurse is like tending to her, and that her father, this sort of like out of work, kind of shabby looking dwarf, kind of like he's got like almost like a Carhartt jacket and like big boots, is sitting next to her. The nurse comes over. You bring the school nurse. Her name is Fatima. See, she walks over and says, "Hey, are you guys all sick? Anything from yesterday?"
We were just checking on our friend. Is she okay? What happened to her?
You know Ostentatia?
Yes.
You see that it takes you in. You see.
Oh, what a development! How interesting. That Ostentatia is dying. This seems to all track with what I thought would happen. Ostentatia is fucking poisoned and is in the nurses. It's the tea. It's the tea. Hey, I'll tell you the tea. The tea is the tea in this particular scenario. But why? Why? Has Principal Eggfort been slowly inoculating himself to a particular type of poison? So, like, The tea tastes bad, but this is a whole princess bride. I've been building up an immunity to nightingale poisoning for 13 years. Is it that sort of shit? Or was someone poisoning Eggfort? I would find this to be somewhat coincidental timing if someone was poisoning Eggfort. I find it much more likely that Eggfort has been doing the fucking Princess Bride shit. So that's my current guess. I actually think it is unrelated to his death. As weird as that might sound with the rest of what I think is going on here, I think it is unrelated to him fucking phoenix egging. And I think I'm right. And I think I'm right.
See that Ostentation again is covered in jewels, and you see her dad is again this like very working class looking dwarf. You see he's holding her hand. He's like, anything for my baby, anything. I give you anything, sweetheart. Anything for you. You see he looks up at you guys and goes, Rizz? Rizz? Want to use Rizz?
The ball, yeah.
My name's Ball. What's up with Rizz?
He reaches into her hand, takes out a crumpled piece of paper, and first of all, it's written in Dwarven.
Okay. I do not speak Dwarven. But
I have comprehend languages.
sweet.
And you can ritual cast that, so that's no sweat. In that case, I'm going to hand this to Siobhan, who's the only one who can read it.
Sweet.
There you go. You see, he says, she got knocked out. She just, last night,
At school or after school?
no, she came home, made a cup of tea, and then, went to her room, and I came in, and she'd fallen down. She was whispering and acting crazy. It was like she had hit her head on her desk. She'd fallen, but she wrote out a note real quick, and she said Rizz a couple times.
Did somebody cast a spell on her?
You see, he says, no. You see, the nurse says, some form of poison, we think, which is unusual. Very powerful poison to affect a dwarf at all.
Huh.
This says,
We should go. We should go.
yeah, let's go. Let's go somewhere else.
Let's go get flowers for Ostentation.
That's fine.
That's
Let's
a
go
great
get flowers
idea.
For our friend Austin.
I have a flower.
Oh, let's go get more of them, though.
Yeah, we don't need.
Can I just give her this flower
Yeah,
right
that's
now?
fine. I cast glow on the flower.
You see, the father says, oh, she'll love that. Thanks, kid. I appreciate that. Hey, there you go. You see, he tucks the flower in the little corner of one of her necklaces, and he pats her head, and she looks up, going,
Is she gonna be okay? I asked the nurse.
"Sweetie, you want to ask me that right in front of her dad?
I didn't.
Why don't you guys go get some flowers, huh?
All right.
Take a little
Yeah,
hike.
okay.
Yeah, I'll see you guys later."
Okay, what does it say?
Okay, so, I mean, I think our spelling is pretty bad. Or maybe it's just my Dwarven isn't good enough. But it says Penny, but spelled P-E-N-Y. And then Johnny, I think, but J-H-N-Y. And then Crystal. But Crystal spelled
Stop. I don't care about the spelling. What does it say?
Penny, Johnny, Crystal, Palimpsest.
Palimpsest. Didn't we get something about a palimpsest earlier, but I don't remember what it was. But I'm almost positive someone has talked about a palimpsest before right now. No, they're not the dream crystals. Maybe I just know the word? I'm almost positive. They're probably going to talk about it. I could probably progress a minute or two, and they're probably going to talk about it. But Penny, Johnny, Crystal, Palimpsest. Is Palimpsest like a prison? Or is the Palimpsest the crystal ball? I don't know. We'll see.
You know what a palimpsest is? I know a palimpsest is a grave without a body in it.
How is it spelled?
But it's not spelt like this. P-A-L-Y-M-P-S-I-S.
P-A-L-M-Y-M-P-S-I-S. It couldn't be Penelope, could it?
I don't think so.
What
It
was
says
the third word again?
Palimpsest. Crystal. Penny, Johnny, Crystal, Palimpsest.
Was Crystal the name of the other? No.
I think crystals are
Crystals are
being
your phone.
installed.
Right.
But it also might be a name.
Yeah.
It looks like a name, but all of the other spelling is so bad that I don't know.
Just gonna say, if you
Two things. Love the ambiguity on spelling. It could obviously just be flavor of she's in the middle of being poisoned, or it could be a cipher. It does draw some ambiguity, especially on the words that they don't know that well, or that, you know, maybe have spelling similar to other words, where it's like, okay, Penny and Johnny are very, very easy to understand. Crystal, like they said, could be a name or an object, which is my second thing. Love the choice of crystal there. I'm gonna guess that it's talking about an object. I'm thinking that the crystal that this is referring to is a palimpsest. And if I can reach back into my memory, I think I know this word, and I think it's some sort of like magical prison, but I could be wrong. But whatever it is, I like that there's ambiguity on what exactly crystal means. I love all of the misspelling. I love, in general, giving the players clues copiously, like all the time, but them being ambiguous, them having potentially even errors, because I think one of the, not best feelings necessarily, but especially one of the things that is going to make a good mystery, especially, or even something like political intrigue, is them taking a bunch of clues and putting them all together. One of the problems in D&D is that you, unlike in like a book, you can't guarantee that your players are going to get every single clue. So I think it's a more reliable strategy to put a bunch of clues in, scattered all about, but also have them be all ambiguous, or some of them having errors. And then they use all of these ambiguous clues and look for the patterns between them. I think that will make them feel like detectives, you know? It'll make them really feel like they're solving a mystery, rather than just, being on like a linear fetch quest. If I get this clue, it tells me to go there. I get this clue, it tells me to go there. Having all of these different things that you have to like filter out what matters, what doesn't. I think that's a really, really good way to make them feel like an investigator.
look at the first, if Penny and Johnny, the
Can we see if there's any
words that are
crystals around
missing
us?
are N and O.
Yeah, you guys are being watched by Crystal right now.
So what
Let's
is
get out of the school.
let's everyone leave.
Can we go to the library and look up what a palimpsest is? Or
Let's I mean, we can, let's
We'll,
split it
I'll go
off.
back
I
to
mean,
the
yeah.
library with you, and then we'll meet you guys.
You guys head back to the library. Go ahead and make an Arcana check for me.
Both of us, or just her?
You can make an Arcana check as well if you'd like.
24.
Ooh, hell yeah. You race to the library, Adine. You mage hand a book off a shelf into your hand, open it up, and you find the definition of a palimpsest, which has a couple of different definitions.
Love that. Love that. It has a couple of different definitions. Number one, again, great for the ambiguity and possibly good for like some thematic mirroring. If a singular word has multiple definitions, one of them might be like literally what Ostentation was talking about, but there's I'd say a decent chance that the other is maybe like thematically appropriate.
First of all, it is spelled incorrectly. Looking at the script of the hand here in the library, like under better light and better conditions, you see that it is not only is the spelling wrong, the letters are shoddily written, right? So everything looks bad about this, right?
Oh, okay.
A palimpsest, in addition to being engraved without a body, is also a sheet from old books prior to printing presses that has been scrubbed clean to re-record over.
Okay, the letters are shoddily. written. And also it is the thing that she thought it is, which is very interesting. A palimpsest is both a grave without a body in it, as well as a sheet that writing goes on that can then be rubbed clean to write on again. So I mean, those both to me imply container, which is maybe also why I had maybe like the prison in my brain. To me, these both say container. One is a container meant to hold a body, and another is a container that can hold thoughts. It's giving very like Soul Gem from Tess, from like the Elder Scrolls. It's giving very Soul Gem to me. Of like, oh, like Johnny's been putting girls into the palimpsest, and possibly that's what all of the dream crystals around the school might also be used for in the long term. Is they will like suck up people's souls and maybe bodies into them. I don't know.
So a palimpsest can be a thing of like, here's a thing, here's a page full of script or illumination. We shear the page, like old sheepskin pages, for example, sheared clean when we want to rewrite a book or make changes or amendments or do other such things. So both in the definition of a grave and in this first definition of palimpsest, it is a thing that was full that has been wiped and made empty.
Oh, okay. That's not Oh, I guess a grave is without a body, like, formally in it? Or, because to me, this was, like, a pre-body sort of definition. But it sounds like it is the grave after if like, a body's been, like, exhumed, has been, like, taken out after burial. So, but that is revelatory from Brennan, really drawing our metaphorical eye to what he wants us to get out of it, which I think is fair. For if you want to go as quickly as Dimension 20 needs to go, it's fair on something like the rest of the note is still kind of ambiguous with the crystal thing. If you want to draw the player's attention more acutely, I think that's fair. I'll say it. I wouldn't have, if I could help myself. Sometimes, I will admit, I get a little excited. And I could see that having happened to Brennan. Sometimes I say more than I should just because I'm excited about the thing that I prepped. But I think if I, and Brennan in this case, can hold ourselves back, I think it is more satisfying for the players to come to those sorts of revelations on their own. But again, I get it. And I think it's also fair. If you need to get through things quicker, you don't want to have possibly as much lag time between them getting this clue and them realizing it. I think it's fair to close that gap. Because it's not even like he gave them a ton. It still is living in metaphor land. But he kind of took them the first 5 feet, so to speak. So in Brennan's words, it is a thing that was once full that has since been wiped clean and made empty. With that, it sounds more like they are like removing these girls' like consciousnesses, their souls probably, and that we might encounter at like, you know, maybe even like the mid-season finale. Or not the mid-season finale, but the mid-season climax is like them fighting all of the missing girls that are now just these like husks essentially. Like, they still kind of behave and act like humans, but they don't have any consciousness driving them. So maybe they even still have a manner of intelligence, but just specifically not sentience or sapience, I guess, in this case. I could see that. I could very much see that. And it still fits in with possibly what the dream crystals are meant for. Maybe the crystal sucks out the soul. It basically, like, the ritual of getting the soul into the soul gem is what eventually creates the palimpsest, not kind of the other way around. Honestly, I feel like I've said this before in Critical Eyes and been super wrong, but I feel like I'm too dead on right now. I was so right about the tea. I feel like if I continue to be right, then people will accuse pre-watch. But I just think this is what's going on. Maybe me and Brennan just have similar writing sensibilities. I doubt it. I bet a lot of this is wrong. But we'll see.
Is it pretty safe to assume that there's kind of crystals everywhere that we're going to be watching no matter what? I'd like to write these guys a little note. I write 5 full notes, very verbose. Basically just asking, should we consider going into the AV club and trying to erase the footage of us talking about this stuff?
Do we have a sense of if it's like CCTV, like it's not recording every conversation people have, it's just people just
Did I get any sense of that while I was in there?
You did not. You don't know how it works.
I don't think.
And not only do you not know how it works, you don't know if you would know how to even erase it. You could like smash the machines around.
I mean, worst case scenario, we could pay all of them, but I mean, I don't think there's any point.
I think paying them would be admitting.
You guys
fault.
head off to the diner.
Cool.
Fabian, you order a car for the gang.
Okay, there was a little bit there. That is, again, especially for a show which needs to be so concerned with going fast and with fitting in a lot within a short amount of time. I think that cutoff there was good. And I also don't think that this is something that is only applicable if you're doing, a 10-episode campaign. This sort of thing is very important for one-shots or even 2 or 3 session limited series, adventures even. I think that a lot of the things that Brennan does, because it's like the 10-episode run, can be taken very one-to-one, I would almost say, into those much shorter formats of D&D. But they can also be useful for campaigns, for breaking your players past analysis paralysis, for doing those sorts of things. And I think that in this case, they're just kind of talking around at school and not really doing a whole lot besides that. So I think it's fair to just be like, all right, you guys had a plan. Like, it's not like Brennan is strapping them with a plan that they didn't all agree to. They all agreed, like, yeah, we're going to do that plan. Let's just do a couple of things really quickly before that. Now, I like structuring those sorts of moments a little bit more of like, okay, before you guys leave, you each have one thing you can do at the school. What is it? And then we kind of go down the list, and once the list is done, we execute on the predetermined plan before that. Unless anyone has an objection towards going forward with the plan based on things that happened in the intervening time. But even though it wasn't as structured as that, I think it still gets at the heart of that of okay, they wanted to do 1 or 2 things before they left. They have done 1 or 2 things. We can move on. Now, you have to judge that and balance that with how into the conversation everyone seems, how productive is the conversation, where they're heading with it, as to whether or not you should interrupt like that as the DM. But I think in this case, it seemed warranted, especially if there's something that you say want to get to before the end of the session, because, even beyond the aspect, which I've talked about before, of like every session is like a limited writing space, essentially. Like, you have a discrete amount of time, and things that you spend time on here, that's like time that you can't spend on other stuff. So there's already this idea of like, it's a limited pie. It's not an infinite pie. But even in a more practical sense, like, people get tired towards the end of a session. If there's a big, interlude where they don't accomplish much, that can slow down the mood and the pace. Some people may just not want to play D&D for more than 3 hours, 4 hours. And so they will start getting less and less invested, even if they aren't necessarily tired. There's a lot of reasons that allowing just like infinite talk is not good, but you obviously have to balance that against letting the players talk and discuss things and all that. There's a balance point in between, and I think that Brennan's hitting it here.
I'm at this. All right, bomb, kick and flip and turn. You understand me? Hey, don't fucking talk to me that way. I'm trying. All right, you're more limber than I am. You see that peeking through a window, you see something that you wouldn't have noticed, but it is glowing with arcane power as you gaze at it. There is a crystal that looks like it has been scarred up or scraped somehow, some way, as if by magic. There's like little fractures all throughout it. You cannot see this. You see a figure of a young girl made of arcane energy, putting her hands up against the outside of the crystal from the inside of it. Next to that, with your investigation check, you notice a small crate that is open with some tea leaves in it. You also see a set of keys on the dash of that little workbench.
Tea leaves and keys. Okay, let's go back and talk to these guys. So we go back to them. So we saw what we saw.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm getting from that, obviously, girl trapped inside the crystal, probably Sam, and or Penny, and or one of the other missing girls. So I was right about the prison, although it seems like the crystal may be the palimpsest, potentially, because the crystal's all fucked up. So maybe they took the magical shit out of the out of the crystal, turning it into a palimpsest that could then suck the girl in. I don't know. I don't know quite how that all works around, but them also having the tea. On one hand, it's like, okay, maybe the tea and the poison is what preps the girl to be sucked into the crystal, or maybe we'll get up there and the thing in the crystal is Ostentatia? Question mark? So like her consciousness got like, her soul got sucked out of her body and thrown into this crystal via tea leaves? But why would Eggfort have those tea leaves? And also, why did this sort of thing not happen to him if he's been drinking them? We saw him drinking the tea twice. And this seemed to be a pretty immediate effect on Ostentatia, according to her dad. Of like, he brewed the tea, and then she like got knocked out. So then there's like maybe some implication that maybe Eggfort was working with them. There's still like a maybe, you know, he was inoculating himself sort of thing so that he couldn't be removed. Maybe if you dose yourself often enough, it's like fucking lucid dreaming. Dream crystals, hey! I'm just saying. Maybe Ostentatia, maybe the D in general, forcibly puts you into a dream? It's like the fucking Doctor Strange mirror dimension or like astral form or whatever, where you get like punched out of your body. But if you do it often enough and you don't get trapped by a palimpsest, palantir? What are we talking about here? Palimpsest. If you do it often enough, you start to be able to like control it. Like maybe it's like progressively dosing yourself with like an astral projection sort of thing. And okay, big theory time. Big theory. Arthur Eggfort, ol' Eggy himself, has been slowly dosing himself with, I'm going to call it the astral tea, which forcibly ejects your soul from your body, but not forever, just until the tea processes. And then your soul returns to your body unless it has been captured by something like a palimpsest. Then Arthur has been doing this to himself for years, and he is now able to control the process. Whereas the tea used to forcibly eject his soul, now it is a controlled and or completely voluntary measure on his part. Voluntary enough that he can hook his soul onto someone else's as it leaves their body. So I think it's possible that Arthur didn't kill himself. I think, potentially, that Helio was telling the truth to Kristen. It wasn't her time, and the Phoenix egg had nothing to do with her coming back. It was all Helio. And the reason that Gorgug came back was the Phoenix egg. The Phoenix egg traded Mr. Gibbons for Gorgug. And so when Principal Eggfort shot himself, it was a fake shooting. He fucking thaumaturgied that shit. And then he fucking astral projected himself out of his body, hooked onto Kristen, and rode her up to heaven. He is now on a clock. Once the tea processes out of his body, his soul will be forcibly returned, probably with whatever he is currently heisting up in Helio Heaven. I think not only are we going to see Arthur Eggfort again, but I believe that he will have pulled off the heist of the century. He will have a heisted Helio Heaven. All through this astral tea business. That's what I think.
You see there's a little tea bag right next to it, but it has a little letter drawn in a script you don't recognize to Johnny spells.
Grab that
Grab
for the
it.
police.
Cool. You grab it. You guys hop in that car. As you hop out, the door opens behind you. You see Johnny at the front look out, and one of the smaller tieflings says, "Johnny, they're getting in your car!"
Does anybody know how
Trying
to
to keep
drive?
face.
Johnny Spells goes, "All right, gang. Let's rumble." Well, that's all for today on Dimension 20.
And with that ends episode 3. I will have a takeaway. My gut reaction, good ep. I think they handled the reputation aspect of things pretty well. I'm very intrigued as to what's going on. I think this is the most notes I've taken any episode. I'm starting to get really into the plot and the story. I think there was a lot of good ambiguous clues. I think that Brennan got them through the episode really quickly, really efficiently at a table that wasn't employing the sort of quickness strategies that Brennan was. I could have seen that episode taking 2 or 3 sessions. And I think it was good for it. Especially, again, comparing it to something like a one-shot, like a limited series. I think there was a lot to see in this episode about how to get through plot quickly. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. Dissecting 20 is doing better than I could have hoped. So I am very excited to keep going, and I'm loving the show. So with that, I'll leave it there. Thank you again, and I hate signing off. Goodbye.